the Beautiful Game Network. I'm Mike. With me is Kev, Josh, and Justin. Thank you for joining us. We're going to talk all things experience on this one. Let's go. I feel like after being a downer for the past few weeks, I need to bring back Let's Go and just like the intro and just get back into things.
It felt very official. Like it felt like the season started. Like it almost felt like it's like, okay, we got the intro back. This is real now. These are real episodes.
That's right. Hey, the Hounds played a game, air quotes. So we'll talk about that. But first, Justin, it's been a minute. How's it going, man?
Man, it's going great. January has been fun. Not to brag, but my EPL team hasn't lost a game yet in January, so it's been pretty good.
That was coming. You deserve that. That's completely fair.
Not to brag, we have over 150 violations of FPL policy, so we're outdoing Man City, so they can take a backseat to us on this one too.
Wait, do you really, or is that just a joke?
No.
Okay.
I meant this show.
I was like, how's that?
Yeah, right.
We're all sorts of violations of financial fair play in the show. So that was crazy. We'll see what happens there. Probably nothing. So
probably nothing.
Kudos to them and Chelsea, who are just Steve's not here, but spending their lives away. Good times. Kev, how you doing?
I'm good. A little tired today. I stayed up to watch the Grammys last night, and it was a good show actually. But I'm doing good.
Any surprises for you?
What, during the Grammys? Not really. Beyonce won. Like, she's now like the most decorated Grammy winner ever. Bonnie Raitt won for like best song, and like everyone was kind of surprised by that. But Bonnie Raitt's awesome. Has an amazing voice, and that was cool. I think probably one of the highlights was, I guess, Questlove curated like an ode to hip hop after its like 50th anniversary. And that was pretty cool. Just how much they packed in there. It was a good show. Trevor Noah hosted. He did an amazing job, and it was cool.
Good. Josh, anything going on with you guys?
What did I do over the week? I got nothing. I can't remember. Oh, I went to a fancy dinner. That was interesting. Someone's friends of ours' birthday party type thing, and like it was one of those like, I wish I could remember what the place was called, but it's like way out, like 45 minutes away, and I totally forgot the place's name. But it's one of those places where you go and like they curate your menu. Like you don't get to pick what you eat. It's just like, this is what you're getting. So I like not making any choices. I'm going to be honest. If every meal if I could just walk in, they're like, here you go. I'm like, all right, cool. Thanks. Whatever.
I'm with you. I'm so with
you. But did you get stuff that you like though?
Yeah, it was good. There's very few foods I don't like. It's pretty much just like, I don't like beets. And one thing did have beets. But it's okay. I still ate it. I was like, whatever.
You gave me 50 guesses. Would not have arrived on beets. That's
like the one thing I don't like. It's beets. That's it.
Yeah. I've done that once before, and like the entire menu, we were like, just don't do this one thing. And it was like the entire menu was that one thing. And we're just like, oh my gosh, okay, fine. Yeah, we'll try it. And yeah.
What was the one thing?
I don't remember. I just remember that it was like, we didn't make a big deal out of it, but the person we were there with was like, okay, like take this back and try again. And it was a whole thing. So I would have just dealt with it.
I remember early on in her marriage, Laura Ellen, one time we went to, she doesn't like Brussels sprouts. She never has. And one time we went to, it was like the first time we really splurged on a meal, like $100 a plate meal type place. And we went there, and I got Brussels sprouts as the appetizer because I love Brussels sprouts. And she like tried them, and she's like, "Nope, still don't like them." Like, come on, this is like the nicest restaurant we'll ever go to. You still don't like the Brussels sprouts.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Kind of like a preseason game against Columbus, where if we don't know what happens, did it actually happen? We were hoping to talk a little bit about who scores and who looks good, but on the request of Columbus Crew, or is it? It's just Columbus now, right? It's not the Crew. I'm sort of outside that whole loop.
No, they're still called Columbus Crew.
Okay, they're still the Crew.
They didn't drop their name.
Okay. The Crew requested that all of that be kept on lock and key. Why?
It kind of makes sense if you think about it from an MLS point of view. Like, they have players that are trial and like signings not announced yet, and like there's still media buzz and like people trying to scout and that kind of stuff, like figure out what they have. So it kind of makes sense that they don't want to show their hand before the season starts. I kind of get it.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, yeah, I now, why Detroit does it behind closed doors, I don't know. But Crew doing it behind closed, at least they're MLS, and I can kind of get it.
Yeah, that's fine. What we do have is we have Bob Lilly's thoughts immediately after the game. So we're going to play that, and then we're going to discuss it and just sort of get our thoughts on what Bob had to say. So let's take a listen, and then we'll go from there.
It helps you make decisions. I mean, these guys need to see the level. We did go entirely with, I think, only 2 starters played in the first 60 minutes. And one played 30 and the other played 30, and the other 20 guys were all. At the end, we got a few more guys in. So it's more about evaluating them because it's our first game. And so for 120 minutes, I think it was good to see where we were fitness-wise, good to see where the trialists were in terms of being able to deal with a high-tempo game and making decisions under the gun, which an MLS team is going to put you under the gun. So I think it was beneficial for the players as well as us as a staff in terms of, we had a good first week. We were excited to come out here, and I think we all expected a little bit better, but we go back to work and we try to learn this week and be better for next week.
Do you like starting preseason with an MLS team?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, the tougher it's going to be, the easier it is for me to make decisions, because you got to be able to play under pressure on the road and handle, that speed of play and game. And I think Columbus will be good this year. I think the coach was highly successful at Montreal, and they're very good in possession. They made us do a lot of chasing, and I think it's a good team that is really good for us because now we have something to chase.
I feel like we know more about Columbus after that than we do the Hounds. Josh, how are you feeling hearing that, Bob thinks Columbus is going to be a good squad this year?
Yeah, I originally had 2 takeaways when I heard this when it first came out. And one of the takeaways was Bob thinks the Crew are going to be good this year. That's a good sign. Like, I'm happy to hear that. I think that's high praise from Bob. But no, I mean, the other takeaway, though, is I didn't really think about the fact that, like, the tougher the opponent, the easier it is kind of to see what they have with these trialists. It's kind of a point of view I never really thought about, that, yeah, maybe it is good that we're playing like a really great team first, or like someone that's, we're probably going to get our butts handed to us, but at least then he can really see, what these players have to offer, and kind of cut to the wick real fast and be like, okay, yeah, now I know what these players are all about. So
yeah.
Didn't really think about it that way.
Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, similar thoughts. I think it is an interesting perspective to come at it and say, like, man, yeah, let's see what we got right away. And maybe there's some quick decisions that are made at that point to say these guys aren't gonna cut it. Yeah, but I think, didn't learn a whole lot other than it helps you make decisions. The way he started the clip.
Yeah, Kev, did you have any takeaways from that?
Not really. I mean, other than I think it probably kind of reveals maybe more of like the mental side of some of these trialists and players. I mean, I think it's easier to assess like the physical limitations, whether it's speed, strength, or whatever, or even just like first touch or, like technique like that. Whereas, yeah, you can't really assess how a player is going to react when they're up against someone who is, much more experienced, a professional, like a professional in the MLS rather than a professional in the USL. And yeah, it makes that more clear and obvious, and that can be maybe sometimes hard to pull out of them in like a trialist environment or in a preseason training camp. So, yeah, about as interesting as you can after a preseason game.
Yeah, a couple of notes. One is they played 120 minutes that were broken into 4 half-hour periods. So this wasn't like anybody was going a full 90 or full, even 45. So this is still very, very much preseason for both teams. I thought it was interesting that Bob said that they had like 2 starters get minutes in like the first few halves. We have team photos showing Ordonez, Biasi, and Ibarra all playing. So either Bob was miscounting or he doesn't count one of those guys as a starter, which gives me a little bit more pause heading into the season, knowing we only have 11 guys signed so far. Yeah, I think, my other takeaway here is that, again, there's just, to get back into the curmudgeon side of things. It's like, why do we have to go all the way up to Columbus to get a sense of how good somebody is? Like it's, you look around at these other teams that are signing, youth internationals that are playing for their international teams. You have guys that have experience in the USL. They're going to step in and play well. And, you've spent a week with these players to get a sense of who they are. It's been how many weeks since we've signed, since it was confirmed that Danny Rivera is back with the team and Kiza is back with the team? We have 11 players still. It's just, I would expect more from, where we're at this point in the season. And I know that this is how
more signings. What do you mean more
signings, more understanding of what this team is going to be. You look around, the USL show did an episode last week where it was like winners and losers of the offseason. Like we can't even be in that conversation because like we barely have enough for a starting 11, and the USL themselves put out the scariest offenses that had like 3 attackers on their team so far this season. And I'm like, we don't even have 3 to be like entered into the conversation. So we'll see what happens. But
I think that's an interesting point, though. I've been actually keeping a spreadsheet for the last couple of years of acquisition dates, like when we acquire, like when they announce signings, and who knows, the contracts could be done way before that. But even looking at last year's signings, we didn't sign Ordonez until February 17th. Nathan Dos Santos was February 18th. Ibarra and Biasi were late February. Jamali Waite wasn't until March 25th. Did we announce that signing? So I think like it's interesting. I think Bob has this pattern of waiting until kind of MLS camps let out and they kind of cut their last few folks, and then he goes in for those players that didn't make it on rosters. I mean, even looking at the year before that, Shane Wheat didn't sign till April. I think some of the guys, Danny Griffin didn't sign till March. Albert Dequa didn't sign till March. And so I think Bob has this history of waiting until later in the offseason to make the signing. So I don't really expect anything different, but I think like you said last week, Mike, like you're wanting surprises at this point, and they're not. The Hounds aren't cooperating for you at this point.
I was just about to say, thanks, Justin, for joining us on the show. You're welcome to leave now. But then you turned around and agreed with me, so that's fine. You're good. You're good to stay. But this actually, this sort of taps into, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this week. I was listening to Houndsy, and they started talking about this, Bob, this sort of look to potentially get younger as a team, and that got me thinking about. When you look back at the history of this squad under Bob Lilly, historically, yes, we have brought in players late like that. And a lot of them are sort of college guys or they're rookies in the league. But it got me thinking, how often do rookies on the Hounds team make a meaningful contribution to the squad that year that they are rookies for the team? We have a lot of guys that we know the names of that, after a year or two, they're making meaningful contributions. But if it's the case where a lot of our players this year are going to be like rookies and new to Bob's system. Is that indicative at all of what we should expect on the field based on historical precedent? And so you found a few interesting things, Justin. What do you got?
Oh, also, wait, just to clarify, when you said like Riverhound rookie, right? Not like rookie.
I think it could be both, but sure. Yes, I was thinking Riverhound.
You're including both, but you're including the option for both.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, the way that I worked it was college players. I didn't.
Cool.
Okay. I didn't look at like anybody pulled from different systems and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I did some very unofficial research because it's hard to find this information all the time. So I had to look up signing announcements really, and I just went through the rosters from the last since 2018, since Bob came around, and like looked to see like who did he sign that really didn't play professionally. Maybe they played in some of the summer MPSL leagues and things like that, but they didn't play like USL or USL leaving League One before coming to the Hounds. So basically, over the last 5 years, you're looking at 25 players who Bob signed straight out of college, and the names are pretty. You know the names for a lot of them: Tommy V, Anthony Velarde, Danny Rivera, Robbie Mertz, Danny Griffin. So you know the names. They're names that you would know. There's some that you don't. There's some that you probably click. Who in the world is that? But basically, when you look at over the course of their rookie seasons, 8 of them have played more than 1,000 minutes. So you're looking at Tommy V played 3,000 minutes his rookie year. Velarde played 1,000 minutes. Mertz played almost 2,000 minutes. Danny Griffin played 1,200 minutes. Tommy Williamson was alone, but he played over 1,000 minutes his rookie season. Yeah, he played 1,034 minutes. Ordonez played 2,000 minutes last year, and Nathan Dos Santos played 1,400 minutes last year as well. And Jamali Waite played 1,800 minutes last year. So you're looking at guys, 8 of them have played, 1,000 minutes. 2 of them, Van Kieziel and Ordonez, played over 2,000 minutes. So they're obviously backline center backs that have stepped right in and played almost every game. So that's kind of what you're looking at. And I think like it is interesting because when you start looking at the Riverhounds current signing process where they sign everybody for a year plus one, 12 of 25 have signed their second year contract. So they've picked up the option on 12 of those 25. And then 4 of them have played more than 2 years. So Tommy V was around for 3. Anthony Velarde was around for 3. Danny Rivera has been around 5. This will be his 5th year. Danny Griffin played for 3 years. And then last year, what's interesting about last year is out of the 6, he picked up 6 college players last year, and he re-signed 5 of them or picked up the option on 5 of them. So you're looking at Ordonez, Dos Santos, Ibarra, Biazzi, and Jamali Waite. So I do think it's interesting. It feels like Bob's hitting on about half of his college players as far as wanting to be around. So I think it's all interesting data, I think.
So you're saying we shouldn't panic?
In some ways, no. I mean, I think it's interesting because you look at some years and like 2020, they signed 5 players out of college, and the only one to get really any meaningful minutes was Danny Griffin. So it didn't work that year, but it worked in 2022 and it worked in 2019. So there's been other years where it's worked. So it's kind of a toss up of what you want to call meaningful minutes and then what works and what doesn't.
Well, it sounded like maybe around 30% of all of the rookie signings turned out to be meaningful contributions to the team.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty good. Yeah.
What I thought was what I'm wondering, and I started looking into a little bit, but I also realized it's hard because you get the COVID year that messed everything up, that only had 16 games or whatever. But like, I was trying to look to see like what happened in their second year. So like Velarde played 1,000 minutes in his first year. What happened in his second year? Well, his second year was the COVID year, and he actually played less minutes because obviously there's only 16 games for him to actually appear in. So it's hard to like kind of balance that out of like, well, what happened in their second year? But I think like Mertz is a good example. Played 1,800 minutes his first year, 1,900 minutes his first year. I would guess he was probably over 2,000 minutes his second year in the league. So it's hard to like balance all of that or just try to figure out like, well, are these players growing in their second year? Or are they taking a step back in their second year? Like, what's even happening overall?
I mean, I'd have to guess based on that list. You mentioned players like Tommy V and Griffin and Mertz, and there are guys who clearly took steps forward. There we go, in their second, third year, and then there's guys that I don't want to say like stagnated, but I think we sort of had high hopes for that didn't necessarily materialize in the same way as some of those other guys, and so I think. What will be interesting to see, you look at last year, and in terms of the rookies that we got, Jamali Waite, we've sort of raved about him, but it felt like Bob wasn't clear on that until we were 2/3 of the way through the season, and then he was getting the start all the time. Ordonez jumped right in and was a center back. It felt like running through, and Dos Santos sort of quickly locked down the outside spot until he got injured. So I think all of those guys were sort of excited to see come back. Ibarra sort of came in and out, Kev, I know, after his heroics at Birmingham in the shootout. You're a big fan of his, and I'm not saying I'm not a fan of his, but he was used primarily as relief late in games. So I don't know. I'll be interested to sort of see what happens, but if we're relying, if we have 11 players and we're relying primarily on, rookies, be it college or otherwise, to come in and fill the spots that have been vacated by players like Alex Dixon or Danny Griffin, then like you're hoping 30% of those hit and like actually do make a difference, which is, a little bit concerning, but who knows? We'll see. But yeah, interesting stuff regardless. So thanks, Justin, for doing that legwork. My biggest question, I was watching a video this weekend where they were breaking down why like Barcelona suddenly are good and like sort of how they set up their midfield, and it was talking about the pivot position and Busquets, and it just got me thinking about how much we relied on Danny Griffin to play that pivot position the past few years. And like, what are we gonna do now that he's not here? Like, is it gonna be Kenny? Kev, you're leaning in. You said we're gonna be fine. All right, why?
I've never been big on Danny Griffin, and now that he's
I knew that's where this is going. I knew it.
I'm like, I knew you
Friend
were.
of the show. Go ahead, Kev. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I thought he was a solid player, and sometimes solid's good if you have the right kind of like cast members around you. Sometimes you need a solid supporting actor, and that's great. I think the problem was too often we relied on him to be the main star, and he's not a main star in the midfield. And so I don't know. I get that, he had all the minutes. Bob leaned on him all the time. He was reliable, didn't get hurt, played 90 minutes, and all of that is extremely admirable. He's fine. I don't know.
Sounds like everyone was just like, he has a great personality, a very professional player, a very professional. Got to admire that professionality.
Yeah.
Deep breaths. I think you're dead wrong. I think that, like Busquets, he did a lot of the dirty work that just doesn't get noticed, and it's because
it's the biggest cop-out answer ever.
No,
he's doing a bunch of stuff that you just can't see.
No. I actually agree, Mike, because there was a quote that I heard specifically about Busquets one time that was basically it was this idea of if you watch the whole field, you never notice Busquets. But if you watch Busquets, you see the whole game. And it was interesting just thinking about that from a defensive midfielder perspective. If you have a holding midfielder who can control the game, then all of a sudden, if you're watching that player play the game, you see the whole game. I'm not sure. I will get on Kevin's side for 1 second that I'm not sure that Danny Griffin is on the level of a Sergio Busquets.
No.
But I think that there's a reality of if you have a midfielder who can control the game, and that's where I would agree with Kevin. I'm not sure your defensive holding midfielder can be 5'7" or whatever Danny Griffin was. But
that's fair.
Yeah.
But I feel like
listen, it's fair for Justin.
Yeah, that's
of course.
That's true. No, and listen, there's a lot of positions that I think we could discuss as up for grabs, but it feels like so much runs through Bob's midfield. And who does that fall to now in terms of knowing his system, being able to run his system? And I mean, having Danny there would allowed Kenny Forbes to be pushed further up the field, allowed Robbie Mertz to be pushed further up the field. Kev, do you want Kenny Forbes being our pivot this year? I mean, you talk about how he, doesn't necessarily, as you're shaking your head, like,
no, maybe, I mean,
close down speed and like things like that.
And when it goes back to the system and everything. So, like, do I want us to play a 3 midfield, like a Barcelona style 3 midfield position with 1-6 as the pivot, and I want Kenny to be it? No. Like, could I envision a system where we're like doing early Mourinho and we're playing like a 4-2-3-1 and we have 2 sitting midfielders? One's a bit more creative, one's a bit more destructive, and Kenny can be that more creative? Sure, I think it could work. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Can I make one comment? Going back a little bit, you were talking about the goalkeeper situation and Bob's tendency with goalkeepers. I mean, I think we're forgetting John Bush, right? The new goalkeeper coach. I can't imagine he's the one deciding that now, right? Like, it's not going to be Bob telling him who to start. Like, you don't hire, like, that was a pretty big signing, it seemed. And, like, you get him in as goalkeeper coach, and then you have Bob being like, nah, I'm going to switch it out today. I feel like that should be his decision now.
It should be, but I mean, we've had goalkeeper coaches the past 4 years and we've still done this. So, yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like it's a challenge to kind of compare the other years with this situation, in the sense that I think like the year you brought in Thomas Gomez and Danny Vitiello, you had a legitimate keeper situation on your hands. This year you have a guy who started 21 games in the USL and nobody.
Well, when those are your options, I'm pretty sure you go with the experienced player.
So I'm just wondering, like, are your other 2 keepers at this point? Are they just college players that you're bringing in to hopefully develop or think about developing, and you're just starting the season with Jamali Waite? Or is there a keeper cut from an MLS squad over the next, month or 2, and you're bringing in that guy to actually push Waite? I think that's when you have a legitimate conversation on your hands.
And to be fair, in years past, we've always thought there was a main
Clear
keeper
cut,
going into the season. We're like, oh, this is our starting keeper. Then next thing you know, it's like he's sitting the bench for like the last part of the season, and you don't know why. So,
yeah, or he tears his ACL. And
there's that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is all like we sort of put out the one poll this week about, I don't know. I think it's been 5 years and I'm starting to get more and more uncomfortable with the River Hounds just equating to Bob Lilly. Like, I think as a club, we need to evolve beyond that, because if Bob, God forsaken, gets hit by a bus, like, we have nothing. We're back to square. There's nobody making decisions. There's nobody saying this is how we're going to play. There's nobody helping with recruiting. Like, I say this, and Dan Visser is sitting at home like, hold on a second. Like, Dan is there, but I'd love to see, recruiting. I'd like to see us become more than just one man. And I'm just worried that we're just, literally, if something happened to Bob and Dan had to step in and take over, is this how he would want to do it in terms of recruiting players and waiting on things and, relying on the eye test and all of that? So I don't know. We'll see.
That's really rare though, because like I can't think of really hardly any clubs where
I thought you say anybody getting hit by a bus.
No. I'm saying like it's like going to like Premier League Everton right now. Like we bring in a new manager, suddenly we completely change our style, and I feel like that's more common. Like it's like the manager dictates the style the club sees. Now you could say like there's some hard like soft facts about a team, like this is a hardworking club. This is always admiring just hardworking players or something like that. Like he's usually something vague and kind of not meaningful when a club's like, this is our style. It's like, okay, it's whoever the manager is.
Yes and no. Like I think I totally agree with what you're saying. I think the Everton case is a prime example, but and Villa are going through the exact same thing now as well. But I think that when you look at least USL clubs that we sort of admire, the Louisvilles, the Tampas, there are teams out west where you sort of have this rotating door of managers for whatever reason, but the club consistently performs at a high level. I have zero confidence that if Bob wasn't here, that we'd be, anywhere close to the playoffs.
You're talking about money. Got it. Yeah, you're right. Some teams have a lot of money, and therefore they get good players, and then they're always good.
Well,
that's the mentality.
I guess. Yeah. So I don't know. One thing we will say about Danny Griffin, we got confirmation today that he is officially playing for Nashville's MLS Next Pro team in 2023. So I think that's the first player that we know and have talked to that is maybe doing this MLS Next Pro thing. So best of luck to him on that. Hopefully he, gets seen by Nashville, gets some minutes with their MLS team and makes it up to that. We've always said if anybody ever leaves this team and goes to play for MLS, like, more power to you. And best of luck. What we hate to see is guys moving laterally to some other team, especially in the East, that we then have to go and face them. So, yeah, best of luck to Danny. Definitely not coming back this year. So, guys, any other thoughts on, the whole how we're building a team right now, sort of where this team is at this point in the preseason, anything like that?
Can I go on one more tangent about preseason stuff that I'm kind of sad to see this year? The Hounds are more professional this year. They actually have kits they give their trialists. So like there's no more looking at pictures and seeing shorts from like the trialists' previous club and figuring out where they came from. Every picture we've seen has pretty much, they've all have Hounds gear on. It's like, come on, like give me something here.
Yeah. They might have the the Hounds logo from like 4 or 5 years ago on them.
It's still the Hounds logo though. It's not theirs.
Yeah.
And that like, I guess one thing I would wish to see, maybe we'll see it once we have a non-behind closed door preseason match, but like they're not giving out trialist names at all.
No,
like even the media press releases and that kind of stuff, like the media release that they usually hand out or send out via email, it says trialist blank. It's like, we know there's like 20 guys trialing right now. Like, give us names. Like, why are they hiding those names? I don't get that, because it's like, why even have that on your media sheet if you're not going to tell anyone? I know Shu, he's not doing the preseason spreadsheet this year because he's like, what's the point? Like, they're not, like, there's nothing I can put on in there. So
yeah, I got all excited. The email from today was like, oh, with updated trialist info, and I was like, great. And then there was nothing. It was blank. So it does, this is a drum I know that Laura Ellen likes to beat, is it makes me feel for the players because it's like you're coming to Pittsburgh on basically a hope and a prayer, and like we owe you nothing. And it's like, sure, we're going to go run you out against Columbus and we're going to do this, and then we might just cut you. And then like, if you can't find another team in the next few weeks, sorry, like you were ours for a little bit and we just didn't want you. So yeah, it's tough. But that's life. You're laughing, Justin.
No. I mean, I'm laughing because I just wonder if we would bring back 1 or 2 more guys every year, how that would change our roster. Like if we were going into this point of the preseason with 13 or 14 players signed, you know, how that would change our perspective. You know, right now we're looking at 11 players signed. And it feels like a little research that I did this week feels like that's where most teams start their off seasons as at 11. And we're not there yet. You know, I mean, we are, but like we don't even have a full roster that we can put on the field yet. So I think it's a challenge. You know, I just wonder how that would change things if we could start with a few more players. But yeah,
well,
I mean, I'm feeling.
Wait. Do you agree that, like, are you, I don't want to say discouraged by it, or do you think we're being too dramatic? Do you think I'm being too dramatic about all of this? Yeah, thanks, Josh.
I'm kind of in between, right? Because we haven't won a championship yet, and we haven't been to a conference final yet, and so I'm discouraged in the sense that it's like, can we get there, and what do we need to do differently to get there? If we're not there yet, like what do we need to do differently to get there? So I'm discouraged in that sense. I'm also very much on the train of Bob has got us to the playoffs 5 years in a row now. One of only 2 teams to do that in the last 5 years. And so I'm like, only one team can win the championship. So like not every team can win every year. So it's like, okay, that we're not winning the championship, but it's just like, okay, well, what do we need to do different to get past this kind of hill that we keep dying on?
Yeah.
So it's kind of encouraging in the sense that, okay, like we've been here every offseason that we've been in so far with Bob. So like, I'm not surprised, but like, I don't know, is this the right thing? Are we just going to end up where we ended up last year?
I think this was discussed in like previous years around preseason time, but do you think that this is, I mean, and you know, there's no way we can know this because even if they said it out loud, it's like whether or not you believe them or not is interesting. But do you think these decisions are made for financial reasons to try to save money, or do you think it's for Bob's like, no, money is not a thing here, and it's purely for me to, he believes it's a method to acquire better talent over the long run before the season starts?
I mean, talking to Bob in the past, he's definitely said stuff where like he knows, or in his mind, he knows what a player is worth money wise. And he is not willing to budge on paying a player more than what he thinks that player is worth. He would rather see a good player go who's asking for way too much and be like, yeah, have another team pay that. I can get 2 players for that price and they'd be, you know, good, or like do what I need them to do. So like I do think there's a value assessment with Bob, and I don't know if it is required. Like I don't know if it's a situation where he's like, I need to do this because I don't have the budget, or if it's just Bob being kind of like, nope, this player's not worth that much money, I'm not paying it, and that's
Right.
just the way he is.
And it's just like you wonder if you're like, all right, Bob, like overpay for 3 players and we get to a final. You know what I mean? Like if it's never that simple, but like, yeah. You know, and
he would say that. I mean, like he said in the past, it's like, it's not that he's paying for a player or not willing to pay that price because he's not willing to get the quality. He just thinks that he can get better quality for a better price if he does it the way he's been doing it this whole time. So,
right.
Yeah. It's frustrating for me because it's not about the quality of player. Like I'm never going to expect Bob to go get Sebastian Gonzalez. Like it's not going to happen. Bob's not going to splurge on that type of player. So I'm not sitting here going, oh man, I wish Bob would go get Sebastian Gonzalez this year. I just wish he would keep maybe 1 or 2 more players around every year just to build the consistency across the year. I actually, like, the research that I did this week was just seeing how many players successful teams bring back. And the average, if you look, I did 6 teams. So I did Louisville, Tampa, Pittsburgh, Sacramento, Phoenix, and San Antonio. So 3 teams from East, 3 teams from West, fairly successful teams. The average, like, over the last 5 years, Louisville has averaged bringing back 16 players every year. Tampa has averaged 11 players. Pittsburgh is at 8.6. Sacramento has brought back 11. Phoenix has brought back 12. San Antonio has brought back 10. And so I'm just wondering, like, year over year, the consistency of how do you build a roster and how do you build consistency in the team. And so I'm interested to see, like, even this group of players from last year, 6 players, he brought back 5 of them for this year. How many of them make it past this second year contract? Like, do any of them sign another 1-1 for next year? And so I'm wondering, just like, are we going to see more Danny Riveras who are sticking around 3, 4, 5 years? Or are we going to continue to see people in for 2 years and out, 2 years and out, 2 years and out? And so I'm just wondering if that's the case. Now, I don't know. I don't know if that makes us more successful. And I know we're never going to be Louisville and bring back 16 players year over year. But I think part of this is just Bob's tinkering mindset. Like, he just wants to tinker with the team. He's like, I've done Alex Dixon for 2 years. Now give me somebody else to tinker with.
And I think what's tough there too is we constantly hear about how difficult Bob's system is to play and how they're constantly rotating and changing systems mid-game and things like that. And so to have a few more guys that at least have it, or maybe it's the case that it's so complex that like guys can't figure it out. And so he just cuts them loose. But like just a little bit more of a base. Kev,
I don't have any evidence for this, but do you guys really believe Bob's system is like significantly more difficult to play than any other system in the U.S.? I don't know if I believe that.
I think Bob makes the players know exactly what he wants from them, and like so I don't think it's hard. I think it's exactly what you need to be doing in Bob's system because Bob will tell you repeatedly what you need to be doing
during
in
the
system.
game.
Yeah,
move your left foot here and then your right foot here. Yeah.
If anything, it's the opposite. It's people players feeling like they just don't mesh with his system, and like they're not allowed to be more creative outside of that. Like they can't bring their own to it because it's like Bob's like, no, this is what you're going to do, and if you're not going to do it, you're not going to play. So, and I'm not saying that's wrong because it's working for him. But yeah, I do wonder if it's more of the consistency and less of the system that's causing issues.
Yeah, I don't think Bob's system is any more complicated than any of the other successful teams in the USL. I would say probably some of the less successful teams who do a lot more route one, dump and chase type stuff. Like, it's not, I don't know, his system's more complex than that. But I don't know that looking at Louisville's system or Phoenix's system, I don't know that our system is any more complex than either of theirs.
Just real quick, and then we'll move on to this next point. I forget who it was online, so I apologize, but I had posted something on Twitter about the difference in our preseason schedule versus Louisville's and how it's almost like night and day, sort of like two different leagues. And the point that was made was, one team is just perennially expecting to be in the championship and has sort of like the funding to be there. And the other one is perennially make it to the playoffs where it's a 1-1 or a one and done game and anything can happen. And so that very much feels like the approach in Pittsburgh is not let's build a team that we know is like the best team in the league, but let's build a team that's going to get you to the playoffs because then everybody's got a shot and we're just going to hope and pray that like we can take, we can get hot and make it happen. And so whether that comes down to money or whether that comes down to coaching philosophy, I don't know, but once that was pointed out, I was like, yeah, that does kind of feel like what we're doing here. Like you sort of hang around, you get to the playoffs, and then sometimes you flame out in the first round. Sometimes you get to the second. We haven't gotten beyond that, so I don't really know what the alternative is, but that's kind of where we're at. So, yeah. Okay. Anything else on this topic, guys, before we move on? We got a couple of other things to sort of talk through here.
John Morsey said he's hovering over the panic button.
Oh, really?
About the Hounds.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we need to get him on this preseason too. So
projected at 12th in the East, and he's.
With what we have signed, how else would you rate us? Like, I feel like this is a way too early rating. Like, wait until the preseason's over and then rate us.
He said that when I questioned him on it. So
yeah,
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. One thing I wanted to point out is we're going to, so Josh, I know you've been mentioning it sort of off and on about everything that's going on at Twitter, whether you feel like Twitter is going down or not, or whatever. I think that it's important that we at least have some contingency plans in place. So there have been some discussions of like, if all of a sudden you wake up and Twitter doesn't work anymore, like where are people going to find us and how are we going to continue this conversation? And so, yes, Cav, I did seemingly hit the panic button months ago. Thank you for sharing that in our private chat. Anyway, so one of the things that we're going to try doing is we already have these videos that we do of the show on YouTube. And, you know, Justin, you did all the preseason stuff or the pregame stuff last season. We put that on YouTube. Steve has been going to some of the preseason training stuff and he's been doing player interviews. We put that on YouTube. We now have the ability to do posts and polls and all sorts of stuff on YouTube. So I think that we're going to start doing both things on YouTube and Twitter. So if all of a sudden Twitter goes kaput, you can find all the same stuff over at YouTube. One of the things that we're going to try to do to incentivize people to jump over to YouTube, and actually if you access YouTube on your phone, it very much works like a social media site. It's almost getting scary with like posts and polls and comments, and like it's feeling a lot less than just videos. But we're going to introduce a new game this year. And there's a pretty lucrative prize at the end of it if you participate. So every game last year, the year before that, we always finish the show by giving our score predictions, and it always means absolutely nothing. And we're always picking the Hounds to win, regardless of who they're playing, because that's just how we are. Well, I think we need to put a little bit more into this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do an official pick'em game, and everybody who is listening is welcome to play as well. And so the idea is before every game, and we'll sort of set a deadline. We'll make the deadline announcement before each game. We want you to go to YouTube, find the video for that episode, and leave a comment with your score prediction. Every score prediction that you get correct, so points, like, you know, final score correct, you get 3 points. If you pick the correct winner, you get 1 point. Otherwise, you get 0 points for the week. Whoever has the most points at the end of the season wins, and the prize we're giving away is season tickets to the Steel Army section for 2024. Whoa. So there's actually like something legit here. Okay. One of the things that I'm contemplating, and I'm going to put this up as a poll on YouTube. So go over to our YouTube channel. If you subscribe to us and you go to your subscriber section, like the polls will typically appear right at the top. They sort of sort things as they come in. I'm debating about whether or not we should say that supporters of our show, so those who sort of pay $10 to be supporters of the show for this year, if we then up it and say the winner gets 2 season tickets to the Steel Army section for 2024. So I'm going to put a poll out there and I'm going to ask, you know, would you be interested in participating in this for $10? And if so, we can up that to potentially 2, basically a pair of season tickets for the Steel Army section for 2024 for whoever wins this. So, Kev, I know you can't go to the games, but what are your thoughts on this format and holding your feet to the fire?
I think it's great. I don't know. I'm guessing you're the one behind the scenes recording all of the results, but yeah.
And no surprise, it's your job. Actually look at
it. Don't like the idea at all. Yeah, really bad idea. I think it's awesome. It's great.
And we'll do updates on the show every week, sort of like who's leading and how many points, and so everyone has a sense of what to expect. And you don't have to join by the first week because obviously you can catch up. But this way, you know, we won't always have the homer pick of all of us saying like Hounds are going to win, like, you know, 10-0. Like that you're not going to get those anymore.
I mean, we can't win the prize, so I feel like we should.
I can say whatever I want.
Something negative or something like that for like whoever loses, the people who lose. Like we'll have to come up with something because right now there's no skin in the game for us still. Like maybe Kevin's still going to be like, well, I actually think both teams could win or lose, or like whatever tangent he'll go off on and be like not answering the question. That's still going to happen right now.
Maybe that's part of the fun for us is like just to try to play head games with people. So they'll be like, which one do you actually believe and who's actually telling the truth? So yeah, And as Liz said in the chat, and we know Mike isn't picking the Hounds any week. That's not true, Liz. That's not true. I will say though, I feel like we just sort of roll over Birmingham every year. Yeah, that's not going to happen this year. So, but yeah, head over to our YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/Mongols. Subscribe. Take the poll about whether or not you think we should do a pair of season tickets or just one, and then take part in the game all season. And somebody's going to be happy at the end of 2023, one way or another. So, any questions on any of that?
What do you think like the winning point total will be?
Ooh,
yes, in the range.
How many games are there in a season? Like 30 some?
35. I don't know.
I'm trying to think of this season, but I think it's around 35. Yeah.
So 35 games. Somebody's not going to get it perfect. Like you're not going to have a score of like 90.
Jeez, if we do, they're some omnipotent, insane. Yeah, it's amazing.
Let's say somebody gets really lucky, and out of those 35, they pick 8 scores correctly. That feels high to me.
That's very high.
But that would be like 24 points right there. And then that leaves 27 up for grabs. And you figure, I don't know, they get half of those.
Get the winner right and half of those, yeah.
Yeah. So what is that? That's like 13 added to what was the first number I said? 16?
Yeah, I think
24.
So 24. Yeah.
You said 24 first, so.
Oh, did I? Oh,
okay. Justin's voice was just so like 24, you idiot. Like,
one of us was listening to him.
That's not what I meant, but it might have been how it came.
So 40 points, maybe?
I'm saying winner gets like around 32.
Okay.
That sounds good. 30, 32, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Justin, what do you think?
It also depends on how many people actually play. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And you got to compete. You got to compete all season. Let's put it that way too. So if like you play 10 games and then everyone gives up, nobody gets tickets. So
yeah.
I think it's hard because like I don't know how many. Like think about how many times you get the winner right, but you're nowhere close on the score. So I think it could be. There could be a chance that it could 20s because no one's getting the score right every week, and so it could be in the mid 20s or so.
We'll have to come up with a fun tiebreaker too, because like, what if it comes down to the end and there's 2 people that have the same score? We could have them like somehow
trivia,
like literally like battle live on the show, and like we just do it live, and yeah, that could be fun. We'll think about it. But anyway, it all starts, like I said, go to YouTube, subscribe, take the poll. It should be there now. I'll just say now. It's not there right now for those of you watching live, but it'll be there by Tuesday morning. So yeah, check it out. Guys, the Hounds have another preseason home game. I shouldn't say another home. Preseason home game this weekend. So Saturday, Highmark, 4 p.m. The game is open to the public, general admission free, all of that. This is going to be the Hounds fans' real first chance to sort of see who's on the field. It sounds like, if we're guessing, because we've got nothing else to go by, you're probably going to see a lot of trialists. You're going to be a lot of like guessing who is that player and trying to figure stuff out. I don't know. Josh, are you planning on going at all?
No, I'm actually going to be in the middle of a movie marathon of the Mummy series.
Oh, wow.
I watched that for the first time like a couple months ago. Yeah.
Are we talking about like the
Brendan Fraser?
Yes. Mummy? Okay, good. Making sure. But yeah. So I will be watching those movies. This was a movie marathon that we planned before I think we had the Hound schedule. So
fair enough.
Nice.
Fair enough. I contemplated coming in for the game. We'll see if it actually happens. There's a few other things that have to like fall right for the kids this week. And if we're free, then they've been itching to come in and just have like a Pittsburgh day. So we're coming in for the home opener. We'll be there for that. As is Justin and Laura Ellen. So that'll be fun. Yeah. So if you have nothing going on Saturday, Highmark, 4 p.m. It's free to get in. Go check it out. Share your thoughts. All that fun stuff. Josh, there's an AGM coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be on the last preseason game against Louisville, March 4th. We're having it at 12 p.m. The game's at 2. We have a couple members to vote on to come in. We'll have our Steel Army membership packages available for the first time with the scarf that we just announced today. Check out the Steel Army Twitter accounts to check that out. It's pretty sweet. It's like a punk theme. The back has actually a lyric from Anti-Flag, big punk band in Pittsburgh. On and on, we sing our songs. Thought that was pretty appropriate for the Steel Army. So, yeah, it looks awesome. I'm super excited for it. And then we also have, I think our third item is, I know our third item is a little lanyard, like a Steel Army lanyard. The wrist kind, like not the really long ones, but like, yeah, the ones that most people have on their keychains nowadays. So, yeah, it's looking good. I'm excited for the season to start, and the memberships looks great. And yeah, come on down, check it out.
Awesome. Last little bit that we'll just share, maybe a few hours before we went live here, the Hounds announced their home game experiences. And so there's a whole litany. I mean, this is clear effort of new President Jeff and sort of all the things that he's bringing to encourage more people to get into the stands. So it all kicks off at the home opener with a post-match laser show, which will be very interesting to see. And that's not the only one. I think they're doing that again in July, along with $1 beers in July. So that's great. There's a number of Pittsburgh celebrity appearances, which we'll see what that means. A couple of national touring groups at halftime, which I thought originally were bands, and we clarified are not bands, but fun nonetheless. So, the team's pulling out all the stops to really encourage people to get down to pretty much every home game. There's something going on in addition to play on the field. So, Josh, anything from that list that either caught you by surprise or you're excited about?
There is one of the giveaways is going to be replica high marks, like the stadium. And I need one of those. And I think another one's going to be ammo bobbleheads. Also need one of those. Yeah. So I'm excited for those. I'm not going to lie. I usually like the giveaways that they do at the beginning where you come in like, oh, cool. Another extra large white t-shirt with the Hounds logo on it. That's just what I wanted. But no, this sounds pretty sweet. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, and then it seems packed, but when you look at the list, it's actually a lot of stuff that's kind of like either before the game or like after the game. It's not really a theme night. Yeah. A lot of people were concerned that we're going to have like a whole bunch of themes where it's like, oh, whatever, like kind of like minor league baseball themes, but it doesn't look too bad. I'm wondering about the post-game laser show. I can't wait to watch Bob yelling at players while the lasers are going off around them. So that's going to be interesting.
The laser show is actually like Bob's whiteboard, like showing them where they should have been just on the field.
Yeah. And then they're bringing back $1 beer nights, which is also great to see. So pregame $1 beers. Wondering if they're going to go with the Dixie cups again, or if we're going to get like a little bit bigger. Like that's always the question with $1 beers. You got to be careful. You got to see like how many ounces is that beer. That's important information.
Yeah. But again, kudos to the team. I am curious. I saw the replica Highmark Stadium and I'm like, are those like porcelain? Like, what are those made of? And you're going to give those to people as they're walking in the stands? Like, hopefully they don't end up on the field or...
I feel like that's something you actually hold on to. It's not like the little soccer balls that the Legion gave out or whatever. Yeah, you don't want to give out little soccer balls because then if they get angry, they can just throw them on the field. That's a bad idea. But yeah.
And we're not known for throwing stuff on the field anyway.
Of course.
So yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, short of any player announcements, which we did put a poll up on YouTube asking when people think they will announce a player signing. The majority of people said sometime this week. I'm not holding my breath. Like if we get someone great, Justin's shaking his head. So yeah, we'll see. If you had to bet, Justin, when would you say that we're going to get an announcement on a player signing?
After Valentine's Day. So it's not going to be until. It's not going to be another week. It'll be another week and a half. Bob needs.
I was going to say, when is Valentine's Day? That like 2 weeks from now?
Next Tuesday. So we're not that far away. But I think it's going to be another. Needs to see another preseason game, maybe 2, and then he'll make some decisions.
Kev, do you agree?
Yes.
Convincing.
Yeah, Josh. Do you think we'll see one before Valentine's Day?
I'm not getting my hopes up. Just because of everything we talked about earlier, it doesn't sound like it's probable. So don't count on it. Be pleasantly surprised if it happens, but don't panic if it doesn't happen, because it's going to be late, and we're going to find out what our team is when we find out what our team is.
Here's my bet. I think if we do hear something this week, it's going to be a former Pitt player that Bob has watched extensively play all last season and already know about. And it's not going to be somebody new that came in and just wowed them in the first few weeks. So
Liz is totally right, though. They're going to sign 2 players this week just to spite us because we said this on the podcast.
Good.
They're going to listen to it and be like,
good.
Oh, no, not
fine.
that.
Yeah.
Player.
You got us.
Yeah. Listen, I want a T-shirt that just says "Prove us wrong." Please, I'm down on the team. I have all of these, drudgeries about what's going to happen. Prove me wrong. I will happily eat crow if we go on and win the championship this year.
And then on the back it says "In Bob We Trust."
Yeah,
Or it's a reversible.
Yeah, right.
It's a reversible.
Yeah.
You can
exactly.
wear it either way.
Flip it
However
inside
you're
out.
feeling that day.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for us. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about in this one? We're good? All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. I'm assuming we'll be back next week, maybe talking about a player signing, maybe not. We'll probably talk about the preseason game and see how it went. But otherwise, thank you, everyone, for joining us. We always appreciate it. And I'm not in reading out the finale or the closing. Yeah, go to YouTube. Go to YouTube. Go to YouTube, subscribe, and take the poll to let us know.
Hit that like button.
Like and subscribe, yo.
Like and subscribe, and
right, yeah. But no, do vote on the poll about would you be interested in being a supporter for $10 and potentially winning 2 season tickets. So, yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you very, very soon.
Cheers. Later.